There we go.
All right, give me the camera.
There you go. You're on, I think.
Yeah, I got to be on. Welcome to Writer's Life, place where you get the sights, sounds, smells, taste of my particular writer's life, and where you get the truth about the writer's life. Subscribe if you haven't already. Punch the like button. Tap the bell for notifications so you don't miss out on one single uber exciting video. I'm a little out of practice, Troy. A little out of practice because I've been like hit and miss with this stuff.
Yeah.
As you can
Which
see,
is
everybody.
unusual.
I know. I have Troy the Dude Lambert on. Troy has been very busy this summer, in a very good way. Now the little camera thing came on. I wonder if it's going to cut out that whole first 20 seconds.
Oh, no. You appear to be here, and I can see you. So maybe you couldn't see yourself. Who knows?
We're talking about Restream, and
yeah,
I think it wants me to go. I think it wants me to go pro and pay monthly. Stop being a cheap bastard.
Yeah. Well, that's what I did.
I've been paying for Apple TV, Netflix. It's like it all adds up, Troy.
All the important stuff, man. All the important stuff.
I know. I know.
Yeah, for sure.
Troy is back. Troy, who is the president of the Idaho Writers. What's the official term? The Idaho Writers.
Well, it's actually the Idaho Writers Guild, but I'm actually not president anymore. My term has pretty much ended there, which I'm actually happy about because of all the other things that are happening this summer.
Right.
I'm still involved with a bunch of writers organizations, but at least I don't have to be president and in charge of things, which is good. That's good for me. And it frees up time for me to write more books, which is what I really want to do. Yeah,
What a concept. I know, that's why I'm very selfish and I don't give my time away at all. Completely the opposite. I should do more community stuff, but I don't. Because time is time. Can't make up time.
Time's time. Yeah, for sure.
So Troy's back to give us his state of publishing here as we enter the 9th month of 2024. And as I've said before on my podcast, we're about in September. We're about to start writing for November, so the year's almost up, Troy.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, and it's an interesting time because Q4 is, first of all, always real competitive for people's attention anyway, because we have the holidays, and also ad spend totally changes in Q4 because everybody's trying to run ads for Christmas. And so your costs go up, and it's a really bad time. Well, it's not a terrible time, but it's not a great time to release books in Q4 because there's so many distractions. And we put that on top of that it's an election year. So regardless of your politics and regardless of how the election turns out, the election is a giant distraction. And all the political people are running ads too. So ad cost goes up because of that. So it's just kind of it's kind of an odd time of year for publishing in general. So even though we're writing now for November, December, but some of that stuff for me won't come out until January because I'm not gonna fight the Christmas tide to launch things. Now I might have Christmas sales, Black Friday sales, all that kind of stuff to play into it, but I'm not going to release anything new as a part of that. Just because it's just I like to make money, so and that type of thing. So even though I'm doing some new stuff as far as on writer education and things like that, we'll do some stuff through November, and then all that'll stop until January, February, because basically it's really expensive and kind of pointless to do. But anyway, so that's one of the things that's happening in publishing is just the reality of the situation is this is the time of year that we're in. It's a slow time for us, or it's an expensive time to run ads and stuff like that. So, hey, you bide your time. And I plan for it every year. I mean, it's just part of the deal. It's part of the equation. It happens every year. And in election years, it's just even more special. So, okay,
Right.
that's
Right.
fine. It's not going to, it doesn't kill us at all as authors. It just changes the way things work. So,
Yeah,
no biggie.
I noticed as Labor Day approaches, things just drop off a cliff. Happens every year. And in September, maybe things pick up a little bit. Mid-September, it depends.
Yeah.
But all in all, it's been pretty good. For some reason, I didn't run many promos this month, but I did a little more ad spend than I normally do. I almost do almost nothing, but this month, since I wasn't running promos, I did have to spend a little bit because I was getting no traction, zero.
Yeah.
Yep. And then, so I had to do something about that. It just gets under my skin that it's pay to play, but what are you going to do?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's one of those things that I don't like. I loved it when it was the Wild West and we could get a lot of organic reach, but the reality of the situation is it's pay to play on a lot of platforms. And so I pay because I still want to play. And I don't enjoy it. I don't love it all the time.
Right.
But I still do it. So I still play the game because I want to keep playing the game. And if that means I have to pay, then that means I have to pay. So
We
yeah,
do. I know.
part of the deal.
Speaking of money, I've been dying to ask you this for like 3 months because I think I don't think you've been on since June.
Yeah, probably June, maybe July. I remember. Anyway,
I don't remember, but so my agent basically retired, and now I have a new agent, and he's like, "Look, you want another traditional deal? I'll get one for you." And it got me to thinking, I'm hearing that advances these days are so low as to be almost pathetic. And in some cases now the major publishers are even going with no advance. Is that true?
Yes, it is, especially for new authors. And here's the thing that I tell authors is, like, first of all, you have to understand what an advance is. An advance is an advance on royalties. It's basically a loan from the publishing company. And if you don't fulfill that loan by sales, then basically it can cause issues for you as far as later in your career. So I'm not sure that I even want an advance on most traditional deals. Like, I don't necessarily want one. It's not something that's a goal of mine. It's nice to get that money up front, but I like money that comes in over time through royalties. That's what I like. So, and it's more secure because then I don't owe the publishing company anything. So if I want to buy out my rights or something at some point, it's just much easier and much less expensive for me to do that. Right. So because I'm doing things. So I used to be when I first started out, it was a big deal to get a traditional deal, get an advance, all that kind of stuff. But now I do most things independent because that's a business decision. That's a business decision. I don't owe anybody anything. I have 100% control, yada, 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 yada. Right. So it's not, but advances in large part are either going away or they're so small that, like, I mean, you'd have to be an idiot not to earn them out, but at the same time, like, what can you do with a $5,000 advance? Well, almost nothing, right? So it doesn't have the meaning that it used to have in the industry. But I'm hearing lots of agents tell me that, like, in many cases, you're lucky to get a contract, let alone even think about asking for an advance or negotiating an advance. What people are doing instead is negotiating the terms of the contract. So, like, in some cases, if I did get a traditional deal at this point, or even a small press deal, there are rights that I would retain. I would retain audiobook and translation rights because 90% of the time, that even if the publisher holds those rights, they're not going to put out an audiobook. Well, if I can do it and pay to do it, and then I have that audiobook making money for me, then I don't have to wait for them. Translation rights. Translations are starting to be a big deal, especially in Germany and places like that, right? And so investing in translations is a good move for an indie author. However, if you have a deal with a publisher, they may hold those translation rights, but they may not do anything with them. So you can't really go out and do the translation on your own. So instead of doing that, I would just negotiate at the outside. There's certain rights to my work that you're not going to get. You're going to get the digital ebook rights and the print rights to my book, and that's it. And the rest of them stay with me, and I do whatever I want with those rights. And you don't get a cut, right? It doesn't matter. Now, sometimes your agent doesn't want you to do that because your agent gets a cut of what you get from the publisher. So they don't get a cut of your independent stuff. So they're like, hey, give up those rights. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to. So I think that's what it's become more about than rather than negotiating for advances, which was kind of a big deal. It used to be kind of a big deal. Is now we go, no, I'm negotiating for the rights that I get to retain, that are mine. This is my material. This is my book. This is my stuff. I get to do what I want with it. You get to do what I allow you to do with it. That type of thing.
And considering that they're not going to do a whole hell of a lot to market you, then what's the point? You know, like you might as well just do everything on your own anyway with your own company and just save yourself a whole, you know, why give your royalties away at all?
And this is interesting because it used to be that indie authors, like one of the reasons you went traditional was to like get a movie or TV deal.
Yes.
Well, we're seeing indies get TV and movie deals through themselves, through their own company, and not having to worry about going through a publisher. And like I say, one of the things that was just the most telling is when we watched the publishing companies going through merger talks in front of Congress, and they basically told us for 2 weeks that they had no idea how to sell books.
Right.
And I'm like, if you were an author and you weren't paying attention to that, what publishers were basically saying is for our top 10% of authors, we're going to put marketing money behind them and we're going to do stuff for marketing. For the rest of you, if you don't sell 200 books in the lifetime of your book, we don't really care, because that's probably what's going to happen. Well, so as an author, I'm like, why are you chasing that publishing deal when it's not going to give you what you're looking for?
Right.
You know, you're looking for sales, you're looking for marketing help, you might as well hire that yourself. If you're going to go that route, hire that out yourself instead of doing it through an indie publisher and keep a larger percentage of the royalties, because oh my God, what are they doing for you for those royalties? Nothing. Well, now you've got an agent in the mix. They're taking part of those royalties. What are they doing for you? Well, okay. So the traditional deals, in my opinion, traditional publishers are going to have to change their model, because their model is old and outdated and it's not working. And most of them know that. So small presses are changing their models, the ones that are going to survive. But big publishers are like, it's like a giant boat that you're trying to turn. But they're going to have to pivot, because there's fewer and fewer of them with more and more imprints, and they're just becoming less and less relevant to the average everyday author who's a mid-list author who just wants to make some money and also keep writing their books. You know?
That's right. And it's funny because when I approached this agent, whom we both know, he knows what I'm all about, what I've been doing. You know, I've known him for 25 years. And we've almost connected on a few times, but I always had another agent or whatever. But he's like, you know, looks like your company's doing well for you. You know, you found, I think his exact words were, you found a business model that works for you. And he said, I want to concentrate on multimedia rights. So like, he was almost like, you wouldn't have had that conversation even 5 years ago, where they're like, well, if I can't sell a book for you, I'm really not interested in representing you then. You know, and that's when he came up with like, you know, if you want to sell a traditional book, I'll do that for you too. But like, in a way, he was kind of saying like, but why? You know, why even do that? You know, you got something good going here. Like, just give me. We'll work on multimedia projects, and that might be more lucrative for you.
Yeah.
You know?
And for him, because it makes a lot of sense, he is much better off getting your Chase Baker series to be a Netflix series,
Right.
and making some bank off of that than he is trying to sell your ebooks and your physical books to a traditional publisher
Right.
who is probably not going to promote them in the way that you're able to promote them already.
Right.
So you don't need the publisher for that. What you need is the agent's connections to those multimedia connections that you might or might not have.
That's
You know
right.
what I mean?
Yes,
So
and he's very connected.
you
So
want, yeah, you want their connections, and there's like, that's what you want. Like, it doesn't, for me, the money is important to a certain extent, but the control and the rights are more important because that's long-term money.
right.
You know, the
That's right.
short-term money advances were always a short-term money solution.
Right.
But they're never a long-term solution. And tons of people have found that out, right? By the hard way. You get an advance and all of a sudden you spend it all, and then your life is screwed because you can't sell the next book, right? And
Right.
so tons of those stories, we've heard them, we've lived them, all that kind of stuff. So instead of doing that, we're just looking at alternative methods. And this is the whole reason that like indie authors and indie publishing was born, is because we're looking for other methods, and it's not, for me at least, it's not because I'm trying to get around the gatekeepers. It's because the gatekeepers are no longer providing me with something I can't provide for myself.
Right.
If they could, I would still be chasing them.
That's right.
But I'm not. I'm not. It's because this is a business model that works for me and allows me to live and work and do the things that I want to do.
Right.
And as long as that business model keeps working, I'm going to keep doing it. Right.
And
So
to me, it's just a no-brainer at this point. And
mhm.
I've put out at least a novel every month this year and last year, or I put out 2 novellas. And it's just so doable, even on a part-time basis, that it's one of those things where you're kicking yourself, or I am anyway, because I'm a latecomer to the independent world, even though I have published independently before with independent publishers. But I'm kicking myself that I didn't do what I'm doing now 10 years ago.
Mhm.
Because there was not necessarily because there was a lot of money to be made then, because we all made a lot of money 10 years ago, but I would have so many more pieces of intellectual property to be
Mhm.
living off of and living well than I
Mhm.
do. I mean, I'm closing in on about 100 intellectual properties, but I could see, like, for me, I'm going to need 150 to 200 to have things really be clicking,
Mhm.
with meaning that's what my particular store is going to require. Maybe Troy Lambert's store only requires 70 titles for
Mhm.
the store to be turning over
Well,
a nice profit.
and
Everybody's different.
other people that are concentrating on ads and kind of the business side of thing can make it with 4 books. I mean,
Or
here's the thing, and the biggest thing about publishing to understand in the particular world we live in right now is there are as many business models that work as there are authors that are successful, because
yes,
what works for somebody else might not necessarily work for you.
right,
So 10 years ago, yeah, I would have been happy to be releasing a book a month and stuff like that, but it would have been much more difficult for me to do that 10 years ago than it would be for me to do it now.
I'm
You know what
sure
I
there
mean?
are much more
Like,
better tools
so
available. And
it's
sure,
it's a different game, right? It's a different
right,
game now than it used to be. And it's always constantly changing. Like, it's constantly changing and there's a constant pivot, right, to different things that are happening. So for me personally, I'm like, well, okay, I'm going to do the best that I can with whatever we have at hand now, and I'm going to pivot when I need to, right? But the key to that, the whole key to that is just being flexible and understanding where the publishing industry is right now and where it's going, and then riding the wave. And then when you need to switch waves, a surfer only rides the wave so far, and then you got to swim back out, you
yeah,
know. And that's just the way it is. Us skiers, we ski downhill the perfect run, and we get on the lift and go find another one. You know, we don't
right,
stop. The
right.
minute you stop in the lodge is the minute you're done. For
Yeah,
the day.
I'm not going back out.
You know,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, and
Sure.
just like that, there's seasons. There's seasons when things are better than others. Okay,
Yep.
sweet. Ride the season when things are better. So anyway, but all of that being said, is this is stuff that publishers don't, they just keep doing the same thing over and over. And they keep
Right.
expecting that things are going to change, it's going to be different results. And some of them are doing better than others. But for the most part, when you get a traditional deal, you're on the bottom of the pile, especially if you're a new author. And if you already have a huge following, when you get a traditional deal, you just gave them your huge following. I
Right.
mean, along with your intellectual property. So I'm like, there's a few reasons to go traditional, and there's some people that should go traditional, absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with having books that are traditional and books that are independent. Nothing wrong with having all those things, or ones that are short. Some are with small presses, some are, you know what I mean? There's
Yep.
nothing wrong with a variety of approaches and having multiple streams of revenue, but it's just understand why you're putting which book where. If I was going to put a book with a traditional publisher, it'd be for very specific reasons, be very specific books. It probably
Exactly.
wouldn't be one of my Hallmark series, all
Right.
that kind of stuff. So,
In fact, this was the conversation I had with said agent. If I decide to write, like a book, another, or rather, I might hand you a book that I think would do well traditionally. And if you read it and you're like, oh yeah, I can definitely sell this, great. Great, then we'll go that avenue. But it would be a standalone, and it would be a one-shot deal, and I would have to get a certain amount of advance money. If I were to strike all of those things, hit that trifecta, then it would be worth it for that book, for maybe some publicity, whatever. And so long as I could continue my independent writing without stopping, no compete clause, nothing like that. Is that going to happen for me?
yeah.
Probably not. But we discussed it anyway.
Yeah. And that's always the key, is that non-compete clause, or if they option a series.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't want you to option a series, because I don't want you to have first right of refusal for the next book. That's my book.
Right.
I'm going to put it where I want to put it.
That's right.
Now, I might give it to you, but I might not.
Right.
So if you're going to option a series for 3 books, well, man, that better be a big advance, and you better have a big market. Like, I'm going to ask the publisher. It used to be the publisher would ask me what my marketing plan was.
Right.
Now I ask them what their marketing plan is. If you don't have a marketing plan for this book, you don't get it.
Yeah.
You don't get it, because that's what matters to me, is how's that going to impact my bottom line? Because if I put this out myself with my own marketing plan for it, then I make more money.
Right.
Okay. So, you know what I mean? Then let me make that more money, So,
yeah,
anyway,
no,
but yeah. So, anyway,
it makes sense because, I think the last traditional deals I did, I think were with Ocean View. And,
oh yeah.
And they got excited once they knew how many subscribers I had, how many Twitter followers, Facebook followers, because I had been kicked off Facebook at the time. All that stuff. And they're like, oh, goody, like, that's great, whatever. My relationship with them didn't end well, because I ended up blowing up at them for some, what I thought was not a good practice, but I apologized and all that sort of stuff. But that was it for me. I was like, all right, this isn't working for me anymore. I'm not going to get too specific with it, but the process didn't work for me anymore. And I'm like, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of doing this.
Mm-hmm.
It's just treading water. I've been living on advances for years and always sweating it out, like twice a year or whatever it is. And like, I'm done. I'm done with that part of my life. It's over. If I happen to nail something, great. It'll be by sheer luck, or or whatever. Great. But like, otherwise, I'm much more comfortable being the writing machine and putting out titles, as many as I can, so long as they're good. and making my money in both the short and more importantly the long term. But speaking of long term, how often now?
Yeah.
And I'm speaking again to your independent side. Do you check your profits? Do you check them daily, 3 times a day? Do you check them once a week? Do you check them monthly? Do you check them quarterly? Like if you were running a brick and mortar store?
I should probably check them more often, but I check them monthly. I mean, well, I check them weekly or bi-weekly, but I really take an in-depth look monthly.
Okay.
I get my little thing from Amazon on the 29th, when they pay out, and then I look at profitability other places. Now, that is changing because I've started selling stuff direct. I've started seeing I almost can't help but see the profits on more of a daily basis.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you're seeing orders come in, you're seeing stuff happening.
Right.
And so because I see it happening, then it does bring it to my attention. Now, do I sit down and account for it and go, okay, well, I made $300 today or whatever? No, I don't. Could I? Yeah. But I feel like that my time doing that can be spent better doing other things as long as I'm seeing a steady flow of income. Then I'm not terribly worried about exactly what the number is or exactly what that looks like. Now, but if I'm starting a new round of Facebook ads here fairly quickly, well, then I'm going to check those every day or every other day for the first 2 weeks to see what's profitable, what's hitting, what's not. So if I'm doing something like that, I'm going to do a big sale in September on a couple of my books. So I'll be checking those more often because I'm stacking some promos to try to make it a big deal rather than make it a small deal, right? So I'll check those more often because I'm going to be checking to see, okay, where are we at with budgets? What's costing me? What's not costing me? What's working? What's not working? Let's look at all that stuff and massage that as we go through that sale. So there are times because that'll be my last big sale push. As far as other than like in November, I'll have my books that I have for writers. I'll have those on sale during NaNoWriMo and all that kind of stuff. And just, playing to the audience before December. But yeah, so when I'm running campaigns like that are kind of time sensitive, then I'll check things more often, but I'm not really checking profits as much as I'm checking just real quick look at ROI, really quick look at click and conversion rates and what's happening. Do I need to change something? Am I good here for a little bit? What's happening? And so for the most part, those are quick checks. I'm not doing an in-depth look at my profits more often than every month. And then every quarter, I take a really deep look because then it's, quarterly tax time also. So I'm looking at, hey, what am I spending? What am I actually profiting? What's happening with the, where am I going to end up this year and what's that going to look like, and that helps me predict. Then so I'll get nerdy for a second, but I have a cash flow worksheet that basically I do every year, and then I can see trends over the years and over the months. So I can see, okay, well, every February, around the middle of February, things spike for me. So if I run ads, then it spikes even higher. Okay. In September, things drop off right after Labor Day, but they pick up towards the end of the month in September. So if I do something the end of the month in September, I'll probably boost it higher. If I do something the beginning of the month in September, maybe I'll avoid that lull altogether. So I'm playing a game to try to even out that cash flow by studying what happens year after year. What do the seasons look like? And then what can I do to influence that, if anything? Or, so.
I know, because I find myself looking at it like 3 times a day, like all the channels, and I'm like, this is ridiculous.
No.
It's getting to be where I used to look at the rankings.
Do you have something like there's a thing called Scribe Count? That if you're logged into your accounts on Chrome, it's a Chrome plugin, and you can check that, and that'll show you sales numbers and stuff like that really quick. But it shows them all across all the platforms. You can dive in and really look at the analytics, but it can give you a quick overview, a quick look. It costs, I don't remember what it costs. It's not super expensive, but it allows you to take those snapshot looks without going into every platform, because I could not do that. That would drive me to drinking. One thing I am doing though, this is quick advice for indie authors. A friend of mine, in fact, Johnny Truant, told me. He said,
Right.
"Hey, man, Google Books is kind of blowing up. It's kind of a big deal, and people are actually making a lot of money off it." And I've avoided Google Books because it's kind of a pain in the ass
Right.
to set everything up there, because you can't aggregate it from somewhere else anymore. Like Draft to Digital
No.
doesn't distribute
No.
their
Yeah.
stuff like that. So you have to do it direct, but they also have some other really great options. So I just recently set that up, and I'm adding a bunch of books to that, and it's pretty amazingly going pretty amazingly well. So I would tell people that if you're not on Google Play Books, you probably should be. It's actually pretty easy to upload your books and stuff now.
It
They've made
is.
the process simpler,
Yep.
and you're going to make money.
Yep.
So I'm in favor of money. So, as I've
Right.
said, I'm in favor of money.
Me
So
too.
Google Play Books, if you're indie, is a very good place to be. The other thing that's taken off is German translations and German sales. So if you're running Amazon ads, run them in Germany. The cost per click is much lower than it is in the US, and you're getting a bigger return on your money. And so it's actually working out pretty well for indie authors. Anyway, that's a couple
Now, is
things
that
that are
for
working
German
right now.
translations or the English version?
Either. German translations are really taking off really well, but Germans also like to read in English.
Right.
A lot of Europeans do,
Yep.
but Germans specifically. And so sometimes the way you can tell whether you should do a German translation or not is run ads to your book in Germany. If your book does well on Amazon ads in Germany, then putting out a German translation will probably make it do even better. If it does not do well in German ads through Amazon in Germany, then putting out a German translation may or may not do anything for you. Now, I recommend when you put out the German translation, then you go wide. I mean, distribute it to Germany everywhere,
Right.
on every platform that you can,
Sure.
not just on Amazon, but Amazon is a good way to figure out whether it's going to work or not.
Yes.
It's just and for books like what you and I write, they like noir, they like crime, they like all
Love
that
it.
kind of stuff.
Love
And
it.
so running stuff in Germany sometimes is a really, I don't know, I'm giving it a shot with a bunch of stuff. Another friend of mine is doing it with romance. It's working out really well. So I'm like, hey, give it a shot, see what happens. If it doesn't work if it doesn't work for a particular book, try another one. I mean, it doesn't
Yeah.
really matter,
I always come
But anyway.
away from these conversations having learned something tangible that I can put into play almost immediately. Now, I will try this, and I'll report
Yeah.
back to you. And I'm in
Yeah,
full
give it a
agreement.
shot.
I'm in full agreement with Google Play Books.
Mhm.
I started filling that platform maybe a few months ago, and it's especially lucrative if you're running like a book club or something like that. And
Mhm.
it's far easier than it used to be. I gave it up
Yeah.
at one point. I was like, this thing,
So did
I
I.
can't figure it out,
Yeah,
but it's
so did I. And then
simplified.
I went to their booth at 20 Books Vegas this last year in November
Yep.
and talked to them and said, "Hey man, what's the deal?" And they go, "Well, not only is it easier now, but we actually have plans for Google Books to make it even better and make it so you can run ads and all that kind of Google ads and all that kind of stuff." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm in."
Yeah,
Because
for sure.
if anything like that, that's kind of something that not everyone is doing, and you're making money at that,
Yep.
I'm in favor of that. Now, I just told everybody, so things might get a little crazy. Who knows? But you know what I mean. Like,
Yep.
but still, there's a lot of indie authors that are ignoring things that are a little more difficult to do. If you jump in and do them, that's likely to pay off for you. That's my
Yeah.
personal take on that. So,
Right.
yeah.
It's also something I'm doing. I mean, right now it's like my number 3 profit platform, but
Still,
I could definitely see where it would maybe even start beating out Draft to Digital if you really
mhm.
propagated it the right way
Well,
and started really taking
and
advantage of it.
especially if you can run Google ads at a reasonable click rate because you're on the Google Play Store, which it appears that you'll be able to. You can also do audiobooks through there. Anyway, there's all kinds of stuff that you can do through Google that you don't necessarily have. You have kind of some of those options with Draft to Digital and some other things. That's a whole. I mean, we could have a whole discussion about audiobooks and talk about nothing but that. But anyway,
All
um,
right.
but but because of those things you can do on Google Play, I think it's definitely worth like throwing things into for sure. So
All right.
yeah.
Excellent. Troy, where can people find you?
TroyLambertWrites.com. Also, I'm starting a new education platform and stuff with some friends of mine. It's called the Plot Geek Academy. It's the plotgeekacademy.com. We'll be having a couple webinars coming up and stuff like that, and kind of doing a kickoff. There's a whole bunch of courses there, things like that, and we're adding more all the time. So that's going to be a super fun place, and I'm actually really excited about it. So you can find me there too.
All right, you heard it here first, folks, at the Writer's Life. Troy, thank you very much. We shall have you,
bet,
you know, as always. I'm like, you know, thank you, Kublai Khan, Troy Lambert. We'll have you back late next month or whenever it's going to be, and I want to talk about audiobooks a little bit more too when you come back. All right,
Sounds
listen,
great.
have a great
right.
Labor Day weekend. My feeling is you're going to be writing a lot, and that's a good way to spend it. Get outside, though, which you always do, and I'll talk to you later, brother.
All right, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Wonderful to be on as always.